What's up, bro? Trying something a little different today. Today we are gonna go for a little drive and have a chat while we are doing so. So let's go. Let's get after it. On a side note, God, my car is filthy. I really need to get this thing cleaned. I need to take care of my car. Although it's been very dusty today. The last couple of days have been pretty summery, pretty dusty. And it's just been one of those days. But today I wanted to just talk a little bit about something that's been going through my mind lately. And I had a conversation with one of my buddies not too long ago. And he told me that he feels like times were better, earlier years. And I wanted to kind of unpack that a little bit because I used to have this belief system as well. I used to think that maybe, back in like 2016, things were better. I used to especially feel like the year of 2016 was probably the better year. And that's because, when I look at it, I joined the army. I had joined as a regular. I finally went in as a regular, and I started to train in a very regimented and routine manner. And what I noticed was that I found it to be a very hard time in my life, but I had a sense of direction. I had a sense of purpose. And I think that's what really gets people, going when we talk about having that belief system that times were better. That maybe 2 years ago, 3, 4, 5 years ago, maybe those were better days. I personally believe that it's because we had purpose, and because things were simpler, because you didn't have so many distractions. Like, look at what we're dealing with in today's day and age. We have social media that's just trying to keep you on the platform. I mean, the fact that you're watching this video means that you are contributing to that in some degree. I just try my best to make sure that the content that I put out there is beneficial. But a lot of it is very heavily based on just sucking your attention, right? You have so many people and apps, businesses, so many things that just want to take your attention from you. And nobody is giving me right of way, man. That's sad. But yeah, it's just non-stop. And people always want to, get something from you. There's always people who are going to be out to try and, sell you something, or, make you kind of buy into their philosophy or buy their product or whatever it is, right? And I just find that it's such an exhausting state of being. It's such an exhausting way to exist. And while arguably, yes, I was training, I was training long hours, extremely long hours. I was getting up at 5 in the morning, sometimes only going to sleep in the early hours of the morning because we had to, have our uniforms prepped and ready for a drill practice or a drill confirmation test, or, we had our skill at arms training. And we had to make sure that, we were all over our drills because, those pass or fail tests were huge, right? You didn't want to be the guy that got backhorsed. You didn't want to be the guy that got sent back an intake or two because he couldn't square away his admin, because people in basic training, they talk, right? Instructors talk, and people within different intakes also would talk. And yeah, you just didn't want to be that guy, right? But it was simpler. I think I was dealing with a lot of high pressure stress back then, but I found it to be so much more freeing, maybe is the word to use. I found it easier to get on with because, we just had direction. There was a goal. There was always something to be moving towards, right? And I think that's one of the main reasons why a lot of people struggle today, and why they feel that things were better back then, right? But then I also want to propose this idea to you. You might feel that things were better back then because you're only remembering a few glimpses of good times. However, I also want to put this forward. A lot of people don't realize that back then they lacked experience. Like, I know for myself, back in 2016, I wasn't even a fraction of the person who I am today. There's so many life experiences that I had to learn from. There's so many things I had to deal with in order to become the person that I am now. I had to have a tremendous amount of setbacks. I had to be, I had to fail so many times, going through my medical training. I had to fail my pharmacy modules. I had to do all those resets. I had to learn from relationships where it was quite hard. It was quite, it was painful. I had to endure that in order to become who I am now. And arguably, I am more successful in every element of my character, in my sort of like personal development arc. I'm so much more successful now than I was back then, right? Does that really mean that times were better back then just because there was less stress to deal with? I think arguably the level of stress has always been the same. It's just that the refinement on what to allocate our attention to was very different, right? Because back in 2016, with the exception of a few people, nobody was doing YouTube, right? Nobody was, bothering with creating content online, right? With the exception of a few people. And now if you look at them, that's where they've got these massive online enterprises and business, because they just stuck to it. People's attention spans were dedicated and focused on different things. I know for myself, 2016, all I was focused on was my fitness to get ready for the army, right? To get combat ready. I remember being heavily obsessed with trying to impress girls. I was in that phase of life, right? I just wanted girls. I wanted to have a good body. And I wanted to just like play my video games with my friends, right? Because some of my closest mates I've made are online, right? From the time that I was in high school, and we're still friends. I actually went over to the US. It'll be 2 years in November, about like a year, like just shy of 2 years ago, for his wedding. So, attention was split very differently back then. And what we deemed to be purpose was also very different. I just think that the threshold has moved in this capacity now, right? People are now in a place where we have so many different things, pushing and pulling us, and it's just taking everyone's mental bandwidth up. It's just eating away at our mental bandwidth, and that's what's causing us to feel like, back then things were better. But then look at like certain relationships, right? Especially if you just come out of a breakup, it's very easy to look back on that relationship and think, oh yeah, things were actually good back then when X, Y, and Z happened. But what people fail to realize and even remind themselves on is like why you broke up. Why were there issues? Why did things go wrong? If things were really that perfect, why did it go wrong? And it's a two-way street, right? It's not about playing the blame game, but the idea and the concept is to remind yourself that everything does happen for a reason. We live in a world that is based on causality, right? And nothing remains the same. It can't. That's the duality of life. We cannot stay in the same place forever. You know, the simple fact that we age and we die is all the testament to that, right? We cannot stay in the same place, else we will just perish and fade away, right? And the same thing goes for, you know, how we choose to move and navigate life. So yeah, that's my first little car talk. I'm trying to get new to this concept here. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you liked about it, and comment down below on what you'd like me to actually talk about, because I would love to create content and create videos that are going to be useful to you, that you are going to find beneficial, right? I will talk, you know, I'm happy to talk about spirituality, my developments, you know, my personal journey through the military, I've got so much to actually talk about, but I would like to get some feedback from you guys, and I'd like to hear a little bit more about what you guys want to hear more on, so that way I can actually give you guys value instead of just rant forever. But yeah, that's it for today's video, and thanks guys. I'll see you in the next one.